It's kind of
I cannot. No, we're good. I think it's fine. I think we're good.
okay.
All right. Let me type in Facebook real quick. And
I wish I knew where do you make your screen brighter? Like on the screen, not that computer illiterate.
like your brightness.
Yeah.
I have a Mac, so I have my thing doing in the top left. There might be a keyboard thing that you can tap to do that.
Oh, let me look. Yeah, I don't see anything.
It looks fine on your end. I think we're good.
Yeah, I can barely see myself. That's the only problem.
You look fine. Yeah, on my end, you look good.
Okay, then I'll just roll with it.
Yeah. I think we're fine.
Okay.
All right. I think we're all tapped in here. All right. So welcome to the Frozen Rope podcast. We're here today, a little bit different than normal. Usually we have Chad in here, kind of controlling things, but he's out today. He called me up. He was like, "Yo, can you get this kind of rolling today?" I was like, "All right, Chad, I got you." So here today. I'll play the Chad role today. We also have Pat here today. Pat, how you doing today?
Doing good. So yeah, we got a lot to talk about. Second game tonight with the Jazz. A lot to talk about as far as the first game. I think this is going to be different than a lot of the preseasons in the past where we kind of knew what to expect the first game as far as rotations go. But here, everything's all over the map. So there's going to be a lot to talk about tonight.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll get into tonight's game a little bit later, but we'll touch on what we saw on Sunday against the Clippers over in Hawaii. The Jazz pulled out a win there by a few points. One of the biggest key points that I thought we could take away as just like as Jazz fans, one of the biggest narratives around the offseason was who would come in as like the starting point guard and shooting guard and just kind of lead that backcourt unit. And we finally got somewhat of an answer, I guess, in our first preseason game. We saw Colin Sexton and Talen Horton-Tucker take the 1 and 2 on that. And so I wanted to see what your thoughts were on that decision. If you thought, would that be a decision that you would have made, or what are your whole thoughts on that?
I mean, it's a preseason game, so I don't really think that, as far as whatever I would have been okay with whatever he chose. Once the season starts, I might have more of an opinion as far as who we start, because we don't know who's going to start at the beginning of the year. But it was an odd selection, Talen Horton-Tucker, to start the shooting guard. He's not a catch and shoot guy. He's kind of got a slow release. And then you got Colin Sexton, who also isn't really a floor spacer either. So you got two guys that aren't like floor spacers. It leaves, Markkanen less room to operate, leaves less for Collins. So it was kind of an odd as far as chemistry goes, but it didn't work for sure. It didn't work. I mean, the offense didn't look good. But what?
No, especially to start with Sexton. Sexton kind of came off a little bit rusty. I think he had 3 points, 3 points, 5 assists, 4 turnovers, and 1 for 4 from the field. So I think that was I forget, it was like a little bit under like 15 minutes or something like that. But that's not kind of the start you want to have, especially like, kind of getting stuff working in the new lineup. But it's fine because, it is one preseason game. You don't want to overreact. I think, do you think Keontae George would probably be a better, fit next to someone like Talen Horton-Tucker, or what do you think? What do you think is, would be a better staying power here? We think THT would be a better, slotting him in as a starting backcourt, or would Sexton make more sense?
I think the Jazz, like when you look at their backcourt, they've got a lot of guys that need the ball to contribute. They've got a lot of guys that are ball just they just need the ball. They don't have a lot of guys that play good away from the ball. The only really good catch and shoot player that they have, I think, is Abaji. Mm-hmm. And then you got Jordan Clarkson's a good catch and shoot guy, but he dribbles a lot. Sexton dribbles a lot. Horton-Tucker dribbles a lot. Keontae George, he dribbles a lot. So, I think as far as to give their half court sets more balance, I do believe that either Chris Dunn or Abaji needs to be on the floor, because they don't necessarily need to have the ball to be effective. They can spread the floor. They both play good defense. But when you got two ball dominant guys as your point guard and your shooting guard, and Sexton and Horton-Tucker, like I said, they don't have the quickest release. So, to stick them in the corner to spread the court, they're not ideal for that either. And they're both below average defenders. So, I like both players. I don't like the chemistry together. And I'm not saying this because, Dunn had a good game. This isn't knee jerk. I think I wrote
Mhm.
something that Dunn probably should be the point guard before the game started. But we'll see. Like I said, Hardy's a smart guy, and it's preseason, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, for sure. I think you made a lot of sense there. You're talking about it's not. I think a lot of what the Jazz or a lot of Jazz fans have been talking about hasn't been the quality of player that could be putting in the like the starting two. It's going to be the fit. It's like how well are they going to work around the other four players on the court. Like they're all good with the ball in their hands, but I mean, there's going to be one ball to go around, and you have guys you're going to want to feed the ball to rather than have a ball centric or two ball centric guys trying to lead the offense, and that's not going to work. And it kind of showed on Sunday. But yeah, you were touching on Chris Dunn a little bit, and he had a great game too. He had 15 points, 5 assists, 2 steals, and shot perfectly from the field, 7 for 7 in 16 minutes. Do you think Chris Dunn could be? This is probably looking more further into the season instead of more like immediate like preseason. But do you think that he could stick? You think he's going to stick as more of like a valuable depth piece and more of a rotational guy that can contribute minutes, or will his rotational will he expand in the rotation, become an actual starter, and be like a heavy utilized player in this, or will he just kind of be the guy that's coming in and being more of an 8 to 10 man?
That's a good question. If I'm Hardy, how I would play it is I would make Dunn the starter, and then I would give Keontae George the opportunity to take his job throughout the season and see what Keontae George can do. It's kind of like in 2017 when Donovan Mitchell started the year on the bench, and he just kind of took Rodney Hood's job away when it was just very apparent that he was the best guy for the job. So, Dunn's in a pretty good spot because the backcourt's pretty crowded, but he does things that the other guys don't do. A lot of the other players are very similar. Players have they bring kind of the same strengths to the table. But Dunn is a better facilitator. He's a better defender. You can put him, by far the best defender out of the bunch.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if Keontae George does take over that point guard job, that it would be easy to put Dunn as the backup. But as it's looking right now, I think they've got to make a trade somehow. I think you got Sexton and Clarkson on the roster. I think they both offer the same skill set. I don't think you need two of them. I think you just need one. Mm-hmm. And I think Taylor Horton-Tucker, if he doesn't change his inefficiency ways, kind of like last year, like he scored a lot, he filled up the stat sheet, but does he make players around him better? Is he an efficient player, or is he, the Terry Rozier player that type I'm just comparing?
Yeah. I mean, that showed again too last night too, because he shot 13 shots, which was a team high. He had like 1 assist, I think, and he had 13 points. So that's not exactly an efficient. He's not creating for his teammates, or he's not being efficient. So there's 2 of your answers right there. So he probably needs to work that out to get some serious staying power. I mean, right? Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, Taylor Horton-Tucker has to show that he could be efficient and make people around him better. But I think Taylor Horton-Tucker's problem is shooting. And, if he's going to be the shooting guard, he's not a great floor spacer.
Yeah.
So, that's a problem. That's why I think Agbaji has to come in and kind of fill that role. But I think Agbaji, with the backcourt being so crowded, I think Agbaji might be getting his minutes at the backup 3 initially until there's a trade. And then he might step in and get more minutes in the backcourt.
Yeah, and that's the thing about this roster is there's so many, bodies you can throw in there and expect production, but there's almost too much on the roster, because if you throw in a guy like Agbaji at the 3, I mean, what happens to like Simonic minutes or Simone, or like you have guys on the roster that could probably have been or can be, a solid rotational piece, but when you throw in, 5 guards that can come in and get minutes and, like 3 forwards, especially like Bryce Sensabaugh. I mean, you got other guys in there that are going to come in and, command those minutes higher priority than guys, further down the bench. And that's what makes this roster, super interesting.
Yeah, and it's going to make Hardy's job very difficult. No matter how it plays out, you've got to trust Hardy that he's going to do the right thing. And obviously they're playing to win. I don't think they would have tried to trade for Holiday if they weren't have that winning mindset out of the gates. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and speaking a little bit on that, and like the contention between having a competent roster or like a competitive roster between a rebuilding roster, having that youth versus experience. we saw last night that it was preseason and it's one game. You don't want to overreact too much, but you have your two of your 3 first-round picks barely getting an PT. You had Taylor Hendricks coming in at the very end of the fourth quarter, or not the very at beginning of the fourth quarter, played the entire fourth quarter, but didn't see the floor for the first 3 before that, and then Bryce Sensabaugh didn't even touch the floor. So, of course, you're playing to win with the roster, but at the same time, you have guys, sitting there and waiting and trying to develop, and you want to develop and bring them in as a better piece of this team. So, what I'm getting at is essentially, is this something to be concerned about? Getting these lack of minutes and this lack of experience early on.
I mean, Taylor Hendricks is only 19 years old. I mean, he's supposed to be a sophomore in college, so there's nothing to be like too concerned about. I mean, it's pretty normal for a mid first round pick not to get starter minutes or be in the rotation out of the gates and get some time in the G League. Abaji spent some time in the G League last year, but I am but to not be concerned at all, like you might be a little bit concerned. And I'll be honest, like when I saw Taylor Hendricks doing TikToks in the locker room, out of the gates. Like, I'm not saying like, I know these kids need to have fun, and maybe I'm a little bit older, and maybe I'm the one that's out of touch, but I don't know. It's just like you're doing TikToks in the locker room. My thought was, where's your mind at?
No, honestly,
basketball.
Yeah, no, all of the guys that, or all of the players that go out there and do the TikToks, like to each their own. Of course, they can do what they want, but it almost always backfires towards them. It never comes up. It never comes up. And you do a TikTok and ends up being a good idea. It always just comes back and they're just in the replies of Twitter and they just become trolls. So it doesn't really work out for them.
Well, I mean, you're younger than me, so maybe you understand it more. Maybe but like, tell me what you think. Maybe am I out of touch? Am I just some old dude that's telling people to get off my lawn, or is it? Is there really something there?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the person. I mean, I of course I have TikTok. I think most or a lot of the younger people are gonna have TikTok on their phone. As far as like posting the dancing videos, stuff like that, that's never been me. That's never been the stuff that I'm kind of into.
In the locker room though, like posting
exactly. Like I don't know how that goes about with your teammates. Like I feel like there's gotta be some people in the locker room that are kind of like, what are you doing when you're looking at it? And it's like I don't know. Like yeah, I feel like there's a time and place for it. When you're actually on the court performing well, you can post that and you're not gonna get as much flack for it. But then of course right now when you're sitting on the bench, for 3/4 of the game, it's like, okay, less TikToks, more in the gym a little bit, right?
What do you think Danny Ainge is thinking when he walks in the?
Yeah, I don't know. Probably nothing super great. Yeah,
it's just weird to me.
Yeah, it's like I spent my top 10 pick on a TikTok star, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm out of touch. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I hopefully he gets it straightened out, because I mean, I think it's not too much to worry about, because it is just one game. Maybe he could easily come in tonight and just play in the second quarter, and that just doesn't mean anything. But it's probably just a part of it. It's interesting though to see Hendricks and Sensabaugh kind of get slotted down the rotation, and then you have Keontae coming in and instantly getting first quarter and almost pretty immediate reps. Like I think that kind of shows a testament to what they think about Keontae.
I mean, the NBA is not like the NFL, where like if you're a first round pick, you're starting day one.
Oh yeah,
the NBA, especially because they get drafted so young, that it's nothing to be freaking out about. But there are some red flags. The fact that he didn't get in until the fourth quarter means he's not practicing well. That's for sure.
That was like bench warming time. I mean, if it was preseason, it was like maybe a little close game, but he was playing with like Omer Yurtseven, and then I think maybe Samaj came here or something like that towards the very end. But like he should be playing with, guys that he's actually playing with during the season, like Olynyk, and see how he fits with that, or Collins or something like that. I feel like that would make a lot more sense in a preseason time when you're working through these things and seeing how they all fit. Getting your top 10 pick involved makes the most sense to me.
And another thing is, like, if Olynyk were to get traded, let's say he got traded like in the first month of the season, Luka would be the 4, not Hendricks.
Yeah, no, that's kind of maybe that is kind of like the NFL mindset. Like maybe your top 10 pick. I feel like your top 10 pick should get that immediate consideration in the lineup. But I mean, man, I feel like you just gotta, with a project like that, you kind of need to get him integrated and get him work like into lineups and see where he fits the best. Like and sitting him at the very end of the bench is not going to help that. Yeah,
I'm sure they're doing that in practice a little bit, but. Yeah, it's a concern, but I mean, go look at like the draft of last year's draft, and look how many of those guys in the top 20 actually like really made an impact. You'd be surprised how many people don't make
It does
an
take
impact
time.
first year.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
not a big deal. But yeah, Sensabaugh didn't even see the court.
Yeah, and that's what I find weird. And I find it weird because you have Sensabaugh, but also not getting like almost any of your end of rotation guys towards the end of the game. I think you'd at least, and that's a very minor thing, but in a preseason game, it'd make a lot more sense to get like maybe your two-way guys or like a guy like Romeo Langford or something like that. More, just at least some opportunity to go in there and see what he's worth. Like I feel like that just kind of. They're running like a 10-man rotation or 10 to 11-man rotation in preseason.
Yeah.
It seems odd.
Yeah, I think Hendricks is going to spend a lot of time in the G League, and so Sensabaugh. They're not going to have them sit at the end of the bond bands.
Honestly, what could happen is that may be the case early on, but then you get to around All-Star break, and then in February you trade a guy like Olynyk or a guy like THT, and those minutes actually open up to actually get that time, and that might be better to actually have a more a free roster to actually build around those guys rather than actually force them into a fit that they might not be comfortable in.
And then that's what happened to Abaji last year. Abaji at the beginning of the year, he had Malik Beasley here and, Sexton and Conley. I mean, they had a lot of guards. And then, once that trade happened, that Westbrook trade happened, Abaji got his minutes. So, he is only 19. Like I said, he's only supposed to be, sophomore in college,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so exactly. So like there's absolute time. I mean, I think they know what they're doing, taking these young prospects that like are super raw, like a guy like Hendricks or Sensabaugh. But I mean, they have all the time in the world considering that he's pretty much 19. Like he could not do anything for the next 3 years of his career and still be like, okay, there might be something to have here. Because he's so young. There's a lot of potential to have.
For sure. So we'll see what happens with those two, but it's looking like G League for both of them.
It might be. Yeah. But yeah, I think that might cover it as far as, last game that we saw. But as far as, looking at tonight's game, I think it's, is it 8 or sorry, I had, 7 p.m. or 7 p.m. tonight, I think. What are you looking for tonight? Is there anything specific you're focusing on, any storylines like that?
Well, obviously the starting point guard is, is he going to still go with that same lineup? Or, I did read a tweet today. David Locke tweeted out that he thinks he's projecting, there's nothing that came out to say this, but he's projecting that Markkanen and Clarkson won't play tonight. So that would be interesting.
Yeah, and that might be honestly welcome at this point because I think what you have in those two players and you don't know what you have with the rest of the roster. So if you take out, about almost like 40 minutes from those guys, you're putting that in the hands of someone that actually probably needs the minutes. So I wouldn't hate that decision. I think that's probably the right move in preseason.
Yeah, agree. And then I want to see what John Collins can do too. Like John Collins, like he didn't fill up the stat sheet his first game, but he didn't have any plays run through him either.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see like some plays run through Collins to see kind of what he can, offer and what he can do, and see, what last game it was like the Taylor Horton Tucker show when Collins was in the game.
So he was chucking shots out there. I was in like, okay, some of the shots I was saying, I was like, okay, we're just pulling those now because it's preseason. Yeah,
I didn't like that at all.
Yeah, no, I think Collins is a good person to watch tonight because it's going to take time for him to, I think, actually find a fit in this lineup because it's a new situation, brand new everything. He's kind of rebuilding his career. So I think coming in and finding, I think it'd be important to find a lineup that he fits with, and rather than I've said the point this entire offseason that I don't think Collins should be a locked-in starter. I think he could be shifted to the bench or just as like a prominent like 6-man role and find like lineups that offer better spacing and better fit for what he's actually capable of. Because I think pinning him next to guys like Markkanen and Kessler might not be the best fit wise. I think it's kind of similar to what we have in the guard scenario, but I don't know what you think about that.
He's got that finger injury he's coming off of that. Like, I think he was like his 3-point shooting percentage was in the 20s last year.
It was 29 or something like that. So it was getting close,
but if, he can get back to what he was shooting 3-pointers before his finger injury, I don't have a problem with his spacing at all. But like, I am curious to see like, if he can get to 33, 34, 35% from 3-pointers, kind of like he has earlier in his career, then it won't be a problem. But yeah, if he's in the 20s, spacing is going to be an issue with him and Kessler on the court together.
Yep. I said the same thing. I think a lot of it also too comes down to how Kessler can expand his game a little bit too, because a lot of it comes down to if Kessler could space the floor, it's not a problem because, you have the space wide open. But you have a guy like Collins who is gets a lot of his shots at the rim and is a lob threat. But if you have someone like Kessler that can't space the floor, it's going to be a little bit more limiting for that. So I think seeing that development through Kessler could actually be a lot super beneficial to like this entire team. I think having that offensive game expanded would be massive.
Right. We got a question from Dell.
We do. I just saw that.
It says, why even give THT and Sexton an opportunity to start together? Super odd choice, even for a preseason game. Yeah, I do think it was an odd choice. I don't think like Jazz fans are having knee-jerk reactions based on what happened. I think, both those players don't space the floor in half-court sets, so why go with that? But we'll see what he does tonight. I mean, if he goes back tonight, then I think 6 months down the road, we won't even remember who started the first preseason game. It's not going to matter. So we'll see. We'll see what happens tonight.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think honestly, this might be just Hardy testing some things. Just kind of like, okay, let's throw out some like combinations. Maybe tonight he comes out with something different, maybe he comes out with not Clarkson because he's going to be out. Like, let's say like he comes out with like Dunn and Abaji and see what happens there, and just test out for the next 4 games. Just see what he has and see what works well. Clearly, this didn't work well, and you go past that. But yeah,
Okay.
no, you're good. You're good. We got car wash in the stream. What's going on, car wash? Love to see you pop by. We got Pat on lockdown right now. Let's get a 2-0 record in preseason. That would be welcome, I think. I think you'd expect that tonight. I maybe you see it happen. Who knows? What's up, Jazz Nation? What's going on, Ozwaki, Andrew?
Man, sorry about that.
No, you're all good. You're all good.
I got a dog that I live by myself, and sometimes
things happen like that.
Can't control it. But anyways, going back to what we were saying about the backcourt, I'm really curious to see who's going to start tonight. I'm really curious if Dunn's going to get some run with the first team. I would be shocked if he doesn't get run with like some of the, in the first half.
I mean, if you have a game like he just did, I mean, he shot perfectly from the field and led, like, I don't know, like he led the team in scoring. Like I feel like, seeing that in preseason, even though it's one game, it is preseason. You want to see if there's more like coming from it. So if he comes out and he, has a similar performance, I mean, it almost leaves you no choice but to give him, like key rotational minutes going into the season. If he just keeps progressing on this state that he's keep going.
Yep. So we'll see. It's like I said, this isn't like your average preseason game where, teams are going through the motions. Like these guys are really fighting for their jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And another question is, are they just kind of testing these guys out and then they're going to just insert Jordan Clarkson into the starting lineup when the season starts?
Yeah.
So that's kind of curious. Like, are they going to, is Clarkson going to be the sixth man? Is he going to be the sixth man again? I don't know the answer to that question.
No, that's a great question. We got ES69 coming in saying, I think it's about testing lineup still. Win is not really not necessary. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think in preseason, even if you go like 0-4, you don't win a game, you get blown up by 50. It's not going to matter because it doesn't matter towards regular season record. What really matters is getting this new roster going, getting the fit going, see how well everyone, really does together. And then you just go past that because what really matters is when you actually get to October 25th and then the wins matter then. But until then, you just kind of tinker around and like in the lab and just kind of see what works well.
Right. And the two players, like I said, I think that offer skill sets that, some of the others don't is Abaji and Dunn. I think those guys, when it's all said and done, should get more time in the court because of what they do off the ball, because of what they do defensively.
Yep.
Abaji's a great catch and shoot guy. The Jazz don't, this bunch that they have, these guards that they don't have like great catch and shoot guys. Mm-hmm. Someone that can sit in the corner that's tall, they can get his shot off really quick and spread the court for marking in. And
it is the exact opposite of that, actually. It's like guys that can create the shot and from themselves, but it's not guys that are going to distribute like that.
Yeah, they got good shooters, but they got guys that like to dribble the ball.
Yeah.
And you need those guys, but you don't need too many of them. You get too many of them, then it's just,
it's what you have right now. You have too many.
So Hardy's got to make a decision, like which ball dominant guard is going to sit the bench, and it's probably going to be Horton Tucker.
I would probably lean that way too. I mean, because Horton Tucker was brought back on a qualifying. It's not like he was extended anything. He was kind of brought back on a 1-year deal, saying like, okay, what do you have for 1 more year? So I think there's not as many ties, held down to THT because he's just kind of there. If things work well, they don't, or if they do, they don't, But you have a next offseason to really reevaluate it.
Yeah, he's got that huge ceiling that I love, and he's got that wingspan, and he's huge and super athletic. But right now, I think the Jazz are in a position where they just, I don't know if going through Taylor Horton Tucker growing pains is in their best interest. But if I was like a team that like had no chance of making the playoffs, I would totally trade for him and let him just give him a year to figure it out because like his ceiling's huge. I'm a big Taylor Horton Tucker guy, but I'm not sure if the timing is right this year to
especially when you have
really progress.
Yeah, especially when you have guys around the roster in that same room that also have the same case that you want to develop and get minutes like that. But when it's on a guy like when it's on THT's timeline and it's like, okay, you don't really know when you're going to get that, it makes it more difficult to really base your growth and your team building around that.
And he's got that expiring contract. So if he doesn't figure it out quick, he's going to get shipped out of here.
Yeah,
that's
for
just
sure.
how it is.
That is.
So.
Yeah. I think that might about cover it here. We're closing on 30 minutes here, but I think we kind of covered most of the stuff we're looking for. We got things to watch. We got basketball coming on like, an hour and a half. So we'll figure out pretty much everything. Yeah, go ahead.
There is not basketball related, but I think I posted this on Twitter. I think you liked it. So I'm going to throw it out to the Jazz Nation out there. But this isn't even basketball related. But if you're playing Hangman, okay, the best word to stump someone on, and statistically it's a fact, is Jazz.
Oh, yeah, I did see this. That's right.
Jazz. Statistically, it's like the best word to stump someone on Hangman because if they pick the A, it doesn't give them any help. It doesn't do it any good. They got to pick two. They got to pick a Z and a J, and it's probably not going to happen. So.
Yeah, no, it gives you like you get the two like most like letters you're not going to guess in a Hangman game. So
yeah, you only get 5 chances. You get 5
exactly
chances.
Yeah. 5 chances to pick 2 of the hardest letters that you could even throw.
Google it. It's like statistically, it's the hardest word to pick. It's not like I'm just like it's hard. It's statistically the hardest.
I believe you. I'll take your word for it.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's all we got for tonight. I think that's all we got. We'll be live. Chad will probably be back next week and keep the show running on that end. I'll be on my own show on Thursday. I think same time as we did tonight, but we'll be back Thursday. But yeah, appreciate everyone for showing out. If you all want to get any more Jazz content, make sure to hit up Inside the Jazz on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. If y'all want to hear more from us, hit up Pat on Twitter, hit up me on Twitter. I think if I take this off right here, you'll see our Twitters right here. Yeah. But yeah, hope everyone enjoyed watching tonight. Pat, thank you for showing up. Have a good night.
Yeah.